All right, 2 o'clock on the dot as promised. I know some other people will probably be joining us as we get moving through.
Hey, good afternoon, good morning for those on the West Coast. Thanks for joining us today. Talk a little bit about 5G and really today the focal point would be on retail applications and reasons why retail might look to invest in 5G. We'll talk a little bit about what's out there today and then what it looks like for 5G if you're contemplating whether you are the customer or you have a customer or someone that owns retail locations, and maybe it's a good time to start looking at the 5G opportunities that are out there. As we've talked about in the past in these webinars, the evolution of where the wireless connectivity and the speeds have gotten us to. The last evolution, the 4G LTE, really opened up the opportunities, and it really allowed consumers a chance to participate in applications and all the different businesses that popped up that really drove the 4G LTE experience that we've seen today. Now we're starting to hear more and more about 5G, and what does that mean for business owners? Because now it allows business owners and businesses from any size to really participate in the wireless digital experience going forward. And this is only going to get faster and better and more prolific as the network investments continue and these services continue down. So we'll look at the types of connectivity we see today, some of the interruptions, and really what is the cost of downtime and really what's the cost of 5G as well. So the beginning was DSL, just a digital old line that came in. Gave you some good speeds at the time, up to about 10 megabytes per second. It's now in the beginning, it probably wasn't as cheap as it is today, but today it's very inexpensive and it's really all over the country. So DSL is a legacy technology, probably not in use as much, but probably more in use than you can imagine. A lot of mall locations still have DSL, and we run into customers every day that are still running their business off DSL, and it's, again, inexpensive, but it does have its challenges when it comes to throughput speed and some of the other reliabilities that we see compared to other options. If we go to the next one, we'll talk a little bit about the coax world. So, we moved from DSL into a coax world, and that's probably prolific for most of business owners today. I would say this is the most popular way for a small retailer to get their internet access, to get their coverage. The challenges that you see with this is depending on, it varies. The quality of service varies from each location across the country. You may have some carriers who actually share their business bandwidth with their consumer or residential bandwidth. And businesses experience peak times and lag times based on the network traffic. It's readily available. It's relatively inexpensive, but the reliability of it continues to be called into question. You hear about people and businesses every day that you walk into a location and they're taking cash only because their internet's down, or there's latency, or there's all kinds of disruptions out there that really slow down their business. And coax, although it's inexpensive, the reliability of it continues to be somewhat in question, even in today. And that really prompted the need for the next, we touched base on this, fiber. Fiber is really fast. Fiber is pretty reliable because it is dedicated. It's a dedicated circuit to the business. The challenge that we see in fiber is the cost of fiber. And there's really two things that drive that cost of fiber. One, if there's construction to get that fiber to the last mile, typically the customer has to bear that burden. And then the other piece is just the pay to play for the speeds. Fiber is fast, it's dedicated, but typically it runs fairly expensive. And if you're a small business owner, small business owner in the retail space, this is probably going to be something that you really want to take a look at and say, is the speeds worth the investment. And if I have to wait for construction for it, then there's very little value in that space for you. So if we go to the next slide there. So let's talk about 5G fixed wireless and what it offers. This is what we're seeing today. This is, I think when we first started these webinars, we were just now coming into the space of 5G for businesses. Most of the 5G devices that we had seen in the market at the time were really consumer driven. Handsets, tablets, those types of solution devices that were more personal. Well, since then, we've now seen release of some 5G routers, and now businesses really can take advantage of what 5G can offer in the market. They can look at, what are these speeds that I can experience, and what's the investment to get to that type of coverage. What we've seen is in the beginning, these low band 5G networks are really good for small retail, medium-sized retail. If you're an owner of a few sandwich shops or a gym, a couple of locations, if you got 3 or 4 locations, no matter what the business is, fixed wireless is really an ideal situation for you today. It will give you enough speeds to run most businesses today. We're seeing speeds in general in most of the networks, on the low end, about 100 megabits per second, up to about 200 plus on low band. When we see the release of the mid band in 5G, we'll start getting up into those higher speeds, those higher throughput. But really the reality of this today is most businesses, if you're in retail, if you have retail locations, a vast majority of you are going to be able to experience what you're going to need in this low band to mid band capacity. And what's interesting and what's nice is most of the 5G routers we're seeing come onto the market support both the low band and mid band. So you have that access to these higher speeds. Really, when you get into these 1,000 plus megabytes per second type speeds, it's really kind of an overkill for most businesses, unless you're running just full video all the time. Maybe you have open Wi-Fi. That's one thing we talked about last time is in this market, having your business set aside and then your Wi-Fi open to the public as a separate network. We can help navigate those network needs. Usually the biggest driver of the data is going to be an open Wi-Fi network where your consumers or your customers can come in, sit down and stream on your open Wi-Fi. 5G fixed wireless can work to run your entire business practice. We want to make sure that we keep that other part separate and look for ways to help provide the best experience for your business and the best experience for your customers. But if you're running a shop and you don't have public Wi-Fi, 5G fixed wireless could be a very affordable solution for you. We're seeing rates as low as $40, $50 for 5G coverage. And that's comparative to some of the coax, and it's a little bit less expensive than the fiber. And you're going to experience the speeds and the coverage that'll help you really run your business on a 5G network. So when we look at today's applications for 5G in the business space, mostly what we're seeing is this fixed wireless, or this in some IT departments, they'll call it their primary circuit. And we'll talk a little bit about how that architecture looks like, but think about fixed wireless as a way to cut the cord. This is the name of the webinar. It really is the way to cut that cord, is looking at a fixed wireless scenario where you may be replacing your DSL, you may be replacing your coax. You might even think about replacing that fiber because you may be able to lower your operating expenses by looking at some of the attractive plans that we're seeing from some of our carrier partners. Yeah. What we see here is a complicated system here of wires. the reality of this is a lot of times there's our ability to connect to the internet is reliant on a third party and their reliability. And sometimes when you have construction, infrastructure projects going along in a city or near you, crews are they're gonna try not to, but a lot of times you'll get a cord actually cut, not when you want it. And so next thing you know, your business is really struggling to stay connected because now the lifeline to your business has been cut. There's some other things we talk about latency and load and things like that allow that will impact the quality of your service. And the nice thing about 5G is we don't see those types of interruptions. We don't see those types of disruptions, and the cost can be very high. The reason why you see a wireless carrier's disruption on the news is because it's rare, and when it does happen, it does make the news. Think about that when you're thinking about coax and others. When people cut the coax, that never makes the news. So think about how many times you've heard about a wireless carrier being down. It probably happens maybe once every 2-5 years, and that's why it makes the news. So if we look at the cost of the disruptions, let's go next slide, Mark. We can look at the different costs that impact different types of verticals. Financial services, they get impacted the highest. Look at retail. Retail is in that model, with industrial, consumer products. It's pretty costly if you're a retailer, the cost of downtime. And if you think about how the world has changed just in the last 12 months, most retailers today do a lot of their business, a lot of their revenue online today. They'll have curbside pickup. They'll have different applications. They'll have ordering online, pickup in the store. Most businesses pre-pandemic, about 20 to 30% of their business was done online. Now that's about 65%. And having that connection disrupted for any reason is a big cost to their system, and to their revenue stream. It's really expensive to have those types of downtimes. And sometimes you can bear small disruptions, but frankly, for the money, and you can move your business to a 5G fixed wireless solution, it might be worth the investment. Let's talk about the next opportunities: modern and optimized failover, SD-WAN, some of those pieces. So when we look at SD-WAN, that's probably a business that we are very familiar with. It's one of our core products today is SD-WAN. So failover is basically the ability to have an insurance policy in your business. This has been around for a while. This is our core business today. If you look at the primary service piece, that plug up there, that's where 5G can plug into for your primary service. And now what we look at today in solutions in enterprise routers is the ability to have a router that can do the primary at the front end and do failover on the back end. So you may have a 5G router and you may have a dual modem router solution today. You'll have a 5G modem and maybe a Cat 6 or Cat 12, and all that means is speeds. Just know that Cat 6, Cat 4, Cat 12, we'll figure out the best solution for your business. So just ask us, we'll help you. But today what we're looking at is having a single solution that can run on multiple carriers, that allows you to be able to put your primary circuit on 5G and still have failover. All these are remote managed, and with that remote management for these routers, you're able to divide up how you want your service to look like. That combined with SD-WAN, you're able to now load balance your network, provide the best coverage for the best services, make sure that all the things that impact your circuit coming in is available. So SD-WAN solutions have been out for a while. A lot of people talk about SD-WAN, software-defined wide area network. It basically balances out the network load and takes what works best for what application. It makes those definitions. It takes that input from from a lot of different sources and really balances out that network. So when you're looking at 5G and having an LTE 4G backup, having an SD-WAN in there to help control that traffic is important. So when we talk about infrastructure and new construction versus existing establishment. So if you're a business owner today, you're expanding your locations. There's a lot of questions that you may not ask yourself, but may want to think about. When you're looking at new locations, you need to look at what are your options out in these different areas. As cities continue to grow, urban sprawl continues, we're moving more and more into traditional rural areas. And so the groundwork of fiber has not been laid in some of these areas. And so the best connection a lot of times will be your wireless carrier. And being able to connect 5G into these areas, that's where we come in. We can help work with the carriers, make sure that they have the best service in that area, find the best solution from a router standpoint, help you with the management from the remote cloud manager, so it will optimize. The best thing about these type services is you don't have to wait for a guy to come and install your network. We'll help you get you up day one. That's good for driving revenue from day one. You don't have to wait for your opening before the cable guy shows up. You're able to plug, play, get your systems all up running. We'll help you. We'll walk you through it. We'll even come out and provide the service if necessary for you. We have all those capabilities. We can do installs anywhere in the country. If you're an existing establishment, then you have to look at what is my infrastructure, what's impacting my business today? Am I on a coax that I have to share? Maybe I'm in a retail location that has a lot of apartments around me. And I notice around 4 or 5 o'clock during my peak, dinner hour, my internet's starting to slow down. Now that's because people are coming home from work. You may be on a shared coax. You may be experiencing latency. Now what you're able to do is using 5G, you can use a dedicated carrier network as your source for your circuit, to run your internet. You're not really competing at this point. You have 5G capable solution getting right on the right bands for that solution and really powering your business day to day. So let's look at the next slides here. Growth plan. So when you look at 5G today and we look at what's available, we haven't talked a lot about the high band. So if you're if you're a work from home or a very small SOHO business, SMB business, really today's 5G is ideal for you. You are ready to make that commitment. You're ready to make that investment. You're ready to have all your questions answered today about 5G. If you're an enterprise customer today, you might want to look, you've got some other areas to explore. You got the mid-band, high band, and really you have private cellular networks or private LTE. I mean, there are a lot of options to explore depending on what type of enterprise you are today. If you're a multi-location retailer, today's 5G will work for you. If you're an owner of a franchise business and you have multiple locations, you're ready for 5G. If you're working out of your home office or a small office, you're ready for 5G today. So these are really the opportunities. And as 5G continues to expand with the carriers, the speeds, the circuits, the network, everything from the front end to the backhaul is going to speed up and provide you that capabilities of running your business using just a wireless solution. So where does it go from here? Obviously, it always starts in the urban cities, the big cities. A lot of those have the 5G today. We're actually seeing what we would consider small cities, semi-rural, starting to see some 5G coverage. Some of the carriers are even getting aggressive into the rural areas because, some of these corporate farms and agricultures, they have a lot of things that they need to do from an IoT standpoint where 5G can help them from IoT. So these are the types of things that we're seeing when it comes to the 5G networks and really the solution. So when you get into semi-rural and rural, it may not just be about the internet connection. It actually might be the data of Internet of Things. So the point today is cutting the cord. I think we've given you some ideas to think about as 5G for fixed wireless primary and how that blends with your failover today, how it may work in an IoT environment. And if you're really thinking about 5G, now's the time to start asking those questions and let us help you find the answers.